Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Panachecast. Pete and I are delighted to welcome three guests with us today. We're really excited to have Catherine, Fred and Mo, who I'll introduce to you all in a minute. We're continuing our discussion about how you can go about delivering more efficient legal service and legal business. So let me just quickly run through who we have with us today. Catherine MacDonagh, a former corporate counsel and law firm executive. He's a contributing author to several leading texts and is the author of the Lean Six Sigma for Law Firms. Catherine's also the founder and CEO of the Legal Lean Sigma Institute. We have Fred Esposito, a financial, strategic, operational and organizational management executive, and he's consulted with many law firms. His works have been published by the American Bar Association, Bloomberg and Thomson Reuters. Fred is currently the chief operating officer of Rivkin Radler, a regional New York, New Jersey-based law firm. And we have Zain Ajaz, founder of Lex 360, a legal optimization consultancy. In 2018, the Financial Times recognized Mo as one of 6 in-house role models. He and his team have been recognized for their legal technology adoption. Mo is also chief operations officer and in counsel for National Grid. So Catherine, Fred and Mo, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. How are you finding things in an unusual world of COVID-19 and coronavirus? We're all working from home. What are you guys seeing out there?
From the front lines, I can tell you, just from the law firm experience itself at the moment, I think it threw firms, especially into a little bit of a tailspin initially, because there wasn't much time to be prepared, and I think a lot of firms were in the situation where they were not 100% ready for this to happen, but fortunately we saw it coming. We started taking precautions, and we were able to pretty much take a 400 employee firm and make it completely virtual inside of a week. And but it has been a great exercise in change management. Yeah. Catherine's comments about attitude and blue skies. I think people saw partly cloudy for a long time, but I think we now see blue skies because we're starting to see, at least in the Northeast, we're starting to see some lifting of the restrictions, but very, very slowly. Courts are starting to open up. As I was talking to somebody earlier today, the New York State court systems, upstate New York, are going to reopen on May 20th. So things are slowly getting better, but it has definitely been a major culture change.
And do you think this as long it's been in firms, whatever industry, everyone is always adverse to change and things and worried about change. And do you think this has shown people that actually you can turn around things pretty quickly? All these things that you thought weren't possible, have changed overnight, and it's been fine. People have carried on working. People have been able to do things. Do you see that now as people opening their eyes to the fact that actually, we can change quickly?
So I was going to comment on the fact that there's statistics around 70% of complex change projects fail. Yeah. This has been a complex change project, and it's been adapted 100% of the time, near enough for everybody. And I think what we've got is we've shifted people into a change curve where people are now more receptive to kind of looking at things differently and solving problems. So I believe that today people are in that sort of mind frame to kind of look at change and do things differently. So I think we have we have a burning platform. We have a recipient who's looking to kind of change. So I think the opportunities, as the guys are saying, are there for those that want to go off and explore and kind of take those opportunities. There will be those that kind of shrivel and kind of lock down and look after what they've got, but actually the real opportunities are there, and people need to grasp them and take them forward.
I agree, and because the three of us are teammates on the Legal Lean Sigma Institute faculty, one of the things that we're really thinking about and doing more, being more focused on is the fact that our strength is really in the process improvement, continuous improvement space. Yeah. But by definition, we have to work in things like organizational development and what we refer to as the P+ ecosystem. Because when you start working in process improvement, project management, instantly you start to impact other areas that start with a P, like planning, like people, professional development, performance metrics, and pricing, of course. I mean, there are a million Ps. We could keep going on, but so we try to avoid consultant speak at all costs. But we did need to come up with sort of this framework to indicate once you begin kind of exploring one area, it impacts all of the others. And the other thing that we say all the time is we don't think legal is more resistant to change than any other group of human beings. But what we do find is that lawyers in particular are risk averse. And so we've not only proved to ourselves that we can change, and we can do so pretty quickly and fairly painlessly, if you think about it. But we've also shown ourselves that the way we continue, if we continue to operate the way that we always have, there are actually more risks in doing that than there are in finding new ways to do our own work, to work with our team, and of course with our clients. So that's kind of why we say there are lots of possibilities everywhere.
And on the lawyer's point around risk, Catherine, I was going to add on the point for lawyers and risk. Lawyers are really good at identifying risk for their clients. So actually get them involved early in a project and help identify the risks to that project, and they become your mitigation plans. So I think lawyers are excellent at helping you identify what could go wrong with a project and actually what mitigation measures should you put in place to make sure that the project then flies and is successful. So I think, the opportunities there, the change is there. We need to now grasp it and take it forward.
To add to what Mo is saying, what I found is interesting, with the lawyers with reacting to change. I have a couple of examples of things that I instituted while we were in this remote mode. But the one thing I did want to comment on with respect to the change management that I have seen among the lawyers and the staff is the resilience and of the human capital that's within the firm. We have, like most firms, have issued and implemented staff, compensation reductions across the board. Partners doing, also not taking their money. But even with all of that in play, and I also think with the amount of communication that has been occurring between the lawyers and the staff and firm management to everyone involved, I think it has really created a culture that has always, in my view, been very positive. But I think it has even brought out the best in people through this challenge and through the opportunities. We'll talk about this down the road, but some of the things that I have noticed just in the short term of this pandemic is there was opportunities that were found. There were things that became apparent from a process improvement standpoint that I saw that I probably may not have noticed or would have noticed in day-to-day operation. But when you're dealing with it from a remote standpoint and you're looking at the picture overall, there's opportunities for change and there's opportunities for improvement. And there were some things we were able to do that were very beneficial to the firm, will actually help the firm down the road. And I view a lot of these as permanent changes. They're not interim changes. They're going to be permanent if and when we're ever back in the office.
Yeah, people will continue. And Catherine, you mentioned about the P+ ecosystem you were discussing. So we're looking at the fact that that all these aspects like project management and performance management and all these things, everything's linked together. They're not things that you should tackle just independently on their own. You're suggesting that actually you need to take a more holistic approach and tackle everything at this together.
We do, and that's maybe the biggest takeaway of all, is that operating in silos is not going to produce the best results by any means, and it certainly isn't the way to develop competitive advantages, whether you're in a law firm or other kind of law office or a legal department. So having worked in both of those environments, I understand that the cultures are very different. But so all of our work, I mean, none of our clients has ever approached this the same way as anybody else. It's very one size fits one, as they say, which that, if anything, is part of the next new normal. That would be it. So we use two things. We suggest that, it's fine wherever you are on the continuum, that's fine within each of the P categories. So we've developed what we call a P plus scorecard. And we will walk with our clients through a series of questions, kind of just to see where they are on the continuum in each of those areas, so that we can see where we have maybe some good jumping off points. How can we build on the good work that has been done, uncover some best practices, because for sure we want people to know that process improvement and continuous improvement in our world is not just figuring out where things are not working terribly well, but to uncover all of the things that are being done really well, albeit in that siloed fashion. So we're kind of like treasure hunters. And there's a lot of things that people just do. They have figured out how to do. They don't even give themselves credit for having a best practice. But we want to uncover those things and share them. But working within that P plus framework and getting some agreement as to where we are now and where we'd like to be helps us figure out, okay, is it a chasm or is it like a small leap forward that we want to make? And then we come up with a plan for how we're going to get there in a way that's totally aligned with the organization's strategy, culture, etc. Because nobody wants a group of teachers and consultants coming in and kind of saying, this is the way you ought to. I mean, nobody responds well to that. So that's sort of our approach in that P plus ecosystem. Just like lawyers, we take our clients wherever we find them and we say, good on you. You want to get going? Let's build on what you've got.
I was going to throw in some of the science in terms of the P plus ecosystem is a series of tools that the faculty's got. But sitting behind it is all the work around systems thinking. So don't look at the part, look at the sum of the parts. So actually look at the whole piece and then pick the things that are working and not working in that system and then deal with it. So if any of your listeners want to go and do some more research, systems thinking is a big area that I think that would benefit from.
We agree totally with the systems thinking approach, and we couple that with other methodologies. All process improvement, regardless of the methodology you're employing, always starts with understanding what's value in the eyes of the client. So whether we're pulling from systems thinking or design thinking and doing, really user-centered design, everything is looked at holistically, but it's all about how do we get greater value and really harness that power and knowledge of the people that are closest to where that value is being delivered for both the end client and the clients of the process. So it's really rewarding work and people actually welcome it. Most of the time we find people have tons of good ideas about things that could be done differently so that it works better for them, only they don't have a mechanism for productively contributing that idea. And an organization typically doesn't have a framework for assessing, prioritizing, and then resourcing those things. So part of what we do is to help build that architecture in a way that fits with what the firm is doing.
I sometimes wonder whether people are somewhat limited in their thinking and that perhaps they believe that the only process improvement they can make is a technological one. And maybe they think, well, I can never get this technology through the firm because it requires so much approval and there's so many layers of management for those things to be done. And then there's the process of building it. Now, obviously, Pete and I are very interested in that side of things, but there must be, and I'm sure you can help us understand, what can we do without that for the associates or counsel without budget for new technology, even if they have budget, maybe they should be thinking otherwise. How do they get started? How can they implement things themselves? What should they be looking at?
So you've probably heard the quote, people, process, technology, data, a million times. And Edward Deming, the father of quality, says that 85% of the problems are with the system, with the process, and not with the people. And we actually spend a lot of time focusing on people performance or looking for a big technology piece. So for me, each of those things are a key component, but the technology is not the driver. And for me, if you have a good process, actually you will get the technology piece to work a lot quicker. And I've got an example later on that I talk through, where actually drawing out on a piece of paper helped us automate the process, which then helped us buy a technology that was so much easier and cheaper. Had we bought the technology first and retrofitted the problem, we would be buying the wrong product. So I think anyone looking at this, anyone looking at an issue, they need to understand it from those chasms of people, process, data, and then technology. And actually, each one of those has got layers and layers that they need to uncover before they fix it. For the people, without the right leadership or without the right kind of behaviors or the culture, you're not going to get people to shift.
Yeah.
The broken processes are going to create a broken solution for you. Catherine?
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I have to say, we love technology. I sold technology when I left my in-house counsel position. I sold a fabulous proprietary piece of software called Counsel Connect. And it was the first time many lawyers had seen this really cool thing called email, where you could attach a document and then just send it out versus fax or courier or some overnight delivery. But so let me say, we love technology, but as Mo is suggesting, layering technology onto a process that has not been improved or dare I suggest optimized is only going to create more problems. So we use a tried and true framework that process improvement practitioners around the world use. It's not just ours, everyone uses it. And it's a framework that's really tried and true and practically fail-safe. And it's referred to as DMAIC. And it's the 5 steps of doing process improvement project work. And DMAIC is an acronym that stands for define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And so if you're a fix-it type person, like I have a pretty good idea of the problem, like I've got a piece of technology, I can just automate that piece. You're going to have to take a deep cleansing breath when you do this work, because improve is not first or second or even third. It's fourth, and it's fourth for a reason. So of course, technology is going to be part of most every solution that gets introduced as a process improvement kind of initiative, but it isn't where we start. We spend a lot of time figuring out what's the problem or opportunity that we are solving for. And we do our work with cross-functional, diverse teams of people where all of the priority stakeholder groups are represented on the team. So by diverse, I mean different types of thinking, different experiences, and certainly the functions are very important. So it sounds so simple that it would be easy to get a group of people on the same page. What's the problem with the intake process? What's the problem with our class actions lawsuit process, or what are the opportunities? But to get a group of cross-functional teammates on the same page about what those things are and distilling it to a really clear problem and opportunity statement, going through scoping and what's the goal of the project, all of that takes place in define. And then in measure phase, we figure out what is happening with the process. What is occurring? How capable is the process of producing what the client even requires or the clients require internally and externally? And then in analyze phase, we figure out why those things are occurring. So by the time we get to improve phase and it's time to brainstorm about technology, we already know the features we're going to need. So basically, by going through the DMAIC framework, which ends in control, where we lock down the new process. But by the time we get to improve phase, we've basically written our tech specs for our solution. And so selling it and adoption rates basically are non-issues at that point.
And it's interesting you talk about they're getting, people, a diverse group of people together. And do you ever have issues with doing that kind of thing? Most projects that, I've been involved with, sort of one or two people get put on the project team and they're the ones that do the work on it, and others can't get involved because these are fee earners. We can't drag them away from their fee for, their actual work for long. Is it difficult, do you find, organizations to get that, the right number of stakeholders involved? Or is that something that you tackle because it gives such a better improvement with the more people you get involved?
Yeah, I mean, it's so fundamental to the way that we work. But the short answer to the question is, if the team produces a really strong business case, and if the team is not convinced that doing the project will deliver the kind of returns on investment that make it worth it, we will recommend to the decision makers that we not move forward with this project. Sure. But Fred's firm is smack dab in the middle of a process improvement project, and we have 3 partners participating on that project because it's important from different practice areas. So Fred, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about why your firm thinks that's important.
Well, what was interesting, we talk about process improvement. I mean, when last we had the equivalent of the pandemic, 12 years ago, there was all this focus on project management. I remember, and value to the client and managing, but you didn't hear an awful lot about process improvement and methodologies to improve upon what we already have. It was basically a fix in order to correct, a course that went awry, and we were trying to move forward. And also it was a game of survival for many law firms. But from the process improvement standpoint, selecting the diverse group of people, it really, you have to step back and you have to look at what you're looking to accomplish first, because the client intake process we chose because it interacted with so many different areas of the firm and was not limited to, say, accounting or billing or opening of files. It went all the way through the records department to the lawyers using and utilizing these protocols and these procedures and these processes. Also marketing and business development people. So it involved every aspect of the firm, accounting, technology, everywhere you looked. So I put together a team, and the team itself was made up of anyone who has access or anyone who has a need to be involved in the process. And, there was a book that I read years and years ago called Leading of the White Buffalo. And it was a case where if we're going to look to improve something, I'm not going to sit there and say, we should change word processing systems because I think this is the better way to go. I'm going to work with my staff who's using these products, and I'm going to ask them, what do you like about it? What works about it? What doesn't? And I mean, and that's maybe the most general example I can give you in terms of how effective it is to involve these folks. Because Catherine will tell you, because of the collective contributions these folks have made, we have people from the legal assistant level all the way to the directors and manager levels who are involved in this process improvement exercise. And the amount of, I have to say, enthusiasm, also the contributions that these folks have been making in terms of defining the problems. What makes our DMAIC process framework a little different is we were in the middle of our analyze phase and we were almost ready to go into improvement. But then this pandemic hit, and then we thought, first of all, we're going to have to do a change. We're going to have to shift, and we're going to have to extend this project beyond the Kaizen timeline we had looked. We had looked at doing a shorter, more rapid approach. But we decided now is a good time. We had base data for what was happening before the pandemic. Now we're looking at everything over. So we're taking a few steps back and we're going back to measure phase. And we're now measuring data now as a result of the virtual law firm. Yeah. And we're going to analyze that. And we are also working with technology to get more data and more information. And one of the things I can say up to this point we've been successful in doing is we've been able to do some quick fixes already that have improved upon the ultimate process that we're going to adopt. So we've had some successes as we've gone along, but we're going to go back now and we're going to do the data, we're going to collect the data again, and we're going to measure and we're going to analyze the data again. And we're going to actually look at this differently than perhaps the usual framework, where we're going to look at this pre and post, or pre and during the pandemic situation.
And is that something that people shouldn't be worried about, moving amongst the layers and stuff? If something isn't working out, take some step back and go and change that. Don't be afraid of, getting stuck in just going forward. Actually, take what you've learned and move back and forward and change things.
That's true. What is the most difficult challenge for the group, though, because of the enthusiasm to get right to it, we find ourselves in our brainstorming exercises when we're talking about measure and analyze, we start going out of scope. It's so easy to go into other areas and let's fix this and let's fix that. And we have to, Catherine's, our guide, and, we're like, hey, no, we can't do that, and and a few people, I think, are just holding their breath until we get to improvement phase, so they can just let it all out.
I know, they can't wait.
They're just bottled up. But I think when you gather the right diverse team that brings unique perspectives, you're going to hear things that you wouldn't normally encounter, perhaps in your day-to-day workings with this process. Yeah. And we've identified some of the smallest issues, and where we've been able to quantify what the benefit of this process improvement exercise will do for the firm in terms of monetary value, in terms of efficiencies, in terms of accuracy and precision, and reducing errors, again, legal lean. So it's definitely something that has been working very well for us. And while we're taking the steps back, and we're probably going to take this through the rest of this year, we're very optimistic. We think we've got a lot of exciting things ahead of us. But I can't emphasize enough the need to stay within each step, one at a time, and taking it a level at a time, and containing the enthusiasm of those who want to go right to C. Yep. So, but it's a great experience.
We would highly recommend a skilled facilitator do this work.
Catherine is very good at that.
I know. Peter, I was going to make a point around mass engagement. So I worked for a law firm who looked at their client journey. They wanted to map their client journey. So from when they won a client, to onboarding the client, to servicing the client, to getting payment out of the client, and then retaining the client. And actually the managing partners spent some time with their leadership team to actually make sure that the project was a goer. And as soon as the project was kind of given the green light, she engaged the whole of her firm, and we hired out a room, and we had the key steps of the process on the wall, and we had everybody from within the firm come in and say what's currently broken with the process, and actually what would they recommend to take forward. So I think mass engagement gives you some real rich picture. But then when Fred and Catherine were talking about then taking that rich picture, using it through the DMAIC process gets you the more detail and the confines of the project. So I think mass engagement can be done. It can be done firm-wide, and the value is huge.
Exactly. And it's especially when you have this tried and true framework that gives people boundaries within which to operate, you're going to get all of those pain points. I mean, we say all the time, process improvement is an excellent forum for pent-up grievances because it doesn't just allow people to sort of gripe about what isn't going well for them, but it shows a really clear path to how we're going to take all of those things and move forward with making not everything, but the most pressing things better for most people. And I want to add too that, you know, what Fred is saying, sometimes you get the smallest detail that really helps you say, okay, maybe that's not the breakthrough piece that's going to come out of this project, which there almost always is something that's truly breakthrough in every project. But if you consider that, you know, for every 1% improvement you make on a daily basis, it adds up to over 1,000% improvement over a year. Those incremental changes can really make a huge impact over time. So, you know, we're always looking to go path of least resistance if we can for these things, and seeing, you know, there's no point in coming up with a great process. And I really appreciate if no one's going to adopt it. So I really appreciate too, Fred's raising, everybody was gung-ho about project management. And listen, so are we. We think it's best if you can come up with a formal project management model that everybody in the organization uses. So we love helping with that. But we think there's no point in managing, being great at managing a terrible process. And there's no point in having a terrific process if there's no one to manage it really well. So we really believe that both of those things ought to be employed together. And it's one of the things that the Legal Lean Sigma Institute is known for, is teaching and employing both of those things together, as well as just sort of picking and choosing from different methodologies, bringing the right tool at the right time into still using the DMAIC framework, and using, being informed by systems thinking, design thinking, change management models. I'd like, our skill is, you know, a lot of people are good at the science part of it, but we are really good at the artist part of it, which is, for this particular team of cross-functional, diverse people, what's the tool that we can use, say, in measure phase or analyze phase, and how do we get the team working with that tool to get the very best we can out of this team? So we're really in the business of building high-performing, high-functioning teams, as in the process of doing process improvement work, if that makes sense.
Catherine, I was going to jump in on a point around actually the process management or process reviews don't need to happen one way with one client. It can happen cross-organization. And you know, Catherine was talking about we were experts in certain things. Catherine's won an amazing award that I think she should talk through. But as an in-house lawyer, getting my law firms to kind of support me on problem solving, for them it's cathartic, and they want to get involved and they want to fix the thing. They want to fix it once with me amongst the panel. And I think sometimes, you know, we always look at our processes and we look internally, but actually you should look within the supply chain. You should look across with other functions. Catherine, do you want to talk through your legal workout?
I would love to. Thank you, Mo. And this is one of the areas of the bluest open sky there is. And I have, and they're all good, but I have seen dozens of webinars and Zoom meetings being offered on marketing and business development. What can we be doing for our clients? So, you know, also as a former corporate counsel, as you said, Neil, I've also been inside several law firms in a marketing and business development capacity. You know, at this point, whether it's pandemic driven or not, you need to do more than just call your clients and check in and ask how they're doing. We all know this. Study after study shows clients want law firms to be their business partner. So how do we do that? We do our work collaboratively, not only inside an organization, but cross-organizationally. So we actually not only created Legal Lean Sigma. We actually own the registered trademark in that, because we were the first to apply. I mean, we didn't create Lean or Six Sigma, but we were the first to really translate those concepts and employ them and apply them in a legal and business application for law firms and law departments. But we then more recently created this legal workout, which is basically the concept of picking a process. And in this, we have a case study that's with Aon's Global Law Department. And their COO, Audrey Reuben, is now part of the Legal Lean Sigma Institute faculty. So she's on the team. But Audrey picked 4 different processes to work on, combination of legal and business processes to work on with preferred outside counsel. And we worked with 2 different firms. And we simply took the idea of the DMAIC framework and putting people in a room together and giving them a very structured way of having conversations that we found most people are really eager to have with one another. We uncovered immediate improvements and got decision makers in the room. We got go, no-go decisions same day on the team's recommendation. So it was a little bit of like a Kaizen, which is an accelerated way of working through DMAIC, and a little bit of a hackathon and a little bit of a traditional workout. But what we were able to deliver in terms of results in a very short period of time was really astonishing. So we have some, metrics to share with people around that, and a more complete study if people are interested in it. But the most powerful thing is kind of coming back to this idea of helping people break out of their silos. And I do think that the experience globally of people coping with this pandemic and really showing ourselves we can work together and we can work differently. We can, like all of us are working together. We don't all actually need to be in the same room. We can figure out kind of new ways of collaborating and busting out of these silos. It's exhilarating for some people. They will say very often, my goodness, this is the best experience I've had in my professional life. And look what we have been able to do without trade-offs. Both organizations win. Everybody gets something, no trade-offs, and every single person walks away happier because they've contributed to it, and life is better. Their work life is better. In my world, there's no work-life balance. It's just life. Work is part of life. Obviously, it shouldn't be everything in life, but they just feel better. So, it's back to this sort of taking a holistic approach and tapping into that expertise of those closest to the work. So we Aon won several awards, including the ACC Value Champion. They were shortlisted on FT's Most Innovative Lawyers. And the Legal Lean Sigma Institute won several awards. And the one that Mo is referring to, we're extremely proud of this. We were the first ever from legal to win a Process Excellence Network Award for this workout in the category of Best Business Transformation Project. And we were shortlisted with very robust other process improvement programs. And it sort of signaled to me that, legal is not just the unicorn anymore. Legal is actually considered a regular business unit, just like everybody else. So this is the wave that's coming to law firms now. So I don't understand why law firms are waiting for their clients to suggest this type of thing. We are very lucky. We're working with some very forward-thinking firms that are inviting clients in to do certification courses and project work with them. They are going to be the ones that not just survive the current conditions, but thrive no matter what, because they have locked in, they've aligned their processes, they've created this bond with their clients, and what's better than that?
And I was going to say, any law firm listening or BD person listening, if you've missed it in what Catherine has just said, you have an amazing opportunity to actually work with your client to solve the pain points that exist on both sides in the legal workout. And that's, an inexpensive activity, but actually the bonding, the understanding each other, standing in each other's shoes is an amazing gift that, it's very difficult for partners to ask their clients, what's broken, what's not working, how can we do it? And actually this creates a framework for you to analyze the issue and solve it. So I think an investment in a legal workout really does pay dividends.
Mm. You presumably, Mo, your experience of your in-house experience in particular, that must be a significant part of your assessment of your panel firms. What innovation are you bringing to us? How are you improving things for us? Presumably that's a big part of your selection process, is it, in your ongoing monitoring of the performance of the firms?
Yes, so we've just done a massive retender exercise, and something in the region of 35% was in this ways of working area. So the process improvement, the quality piece, the innovation piece, the technology piece. Every RFP that I'm looking at today has a big chunk on innovation. So I think it's inevitable that law firms need to stand people up with real credibility, not an innovation manager who has no teeth, has no real status. Partners bring him in for RFP pitches, but actually doesn't have the capability or the content to be able to do this work. So I think law firms need to look at what clients are asking and what clients are pushing for. And I think, we've been asking for innovation for 5-10 years.
Yeah.
Now it's much more granular and it's much more metrics driven, and it's, a lot of eyeball to eyeball kind of conversations, pandemic permitting, to try and really understand, where the value is, and, introducing things like scorecards and demonstrating the value add that you've given, what innovations you've brought to the table, tangible, intangible benefits. These are all real things that GCs are asking for today. And law firms have been able to give the superficial answers in the RFPs, but actually demonstrating that on a scorecard is a lot harder. So tools like the legal workout will really, really help kind of pick projects and take them forward.
That sounds good.
I also think that with the pandemic and all of the changes that we are all going through now, I think we're going to see some real changes in the P+ ecosystem as well, because the way we operate today is not the way we're going to operate tomorrow. And, we're talking, and as Mo and Catherine are talking about the workout and the different discussions, the communications, the social aspects of these things, I find already that law firms are going to change the way they do business. Some firms, I think, we were talking about this earlier, that some firms that are coming up with lease renewals, some law firms may decide they don't need the amount of space they have anymore, which could turn into a significant reduction in their overhead expenses, which in turn impacts the entire operation. The financial performance, the performance of the individuals, the processes in the firm will all change. And it also is going to create a climate for very competitive and strategic as well as pricing strategy for law firms. And I think because of these metrics that we're going to be seeing, I'm already seeing in a firm of my size where normally you would expect the boat is going to be slow to turn to make any kind of a change initiative or difference. But I have already seen that we have started to, our expenses are starting to come down, and it's because they're expenses that we no longer incur as a result of the pandemic and working remotely. So we're getting that benefit, but I don't think it's a temporary one. I think that as long as this goes down, I think firms now have opportunities, especially if they're up for renewal on their leases, to really restructure how they're going to operate. And I think that process improvement has a golden opportunity in the law firm today for a lot of significant change. And it will involve automation. There's technology, but as my colleagues have said, one of the things I have found is that if the process doesn't work, the technology is just not going to facilitate. So you'll see in some of our slides down the road that you'll see the amount of paper in terms of process mapping, charts, data that's been displayed across a whole room. And then it all gets distilled into a format that basically creates an opportunity for us in the improvement phase. And in our case, with this client intake process improvement exercise we're doing, I think it will result in enhanced technology within the firm that will overlay on a process that's more efficient and solid, and will help us in the control phase to keep this on the straight and narrow. So I do believe that automation and technology is going to have a place in this. But I just think to add to what Mo was saying, the amount of innovation capability that now exists is incredible. And I think now is the time for law firms to really, I hate to use the expression, but do a shakedown and really look at how their processes are working in their firms and what they can do now to improve them.
I was going to say, you'll think this is actually, now is the right time to be looking at these kind of things, because all that we hear on the news and in other places is, let's wait until things get back to normal and stuff. People are expecting things just to go back to the way they were and for us to carry on how we were before the pandemic. But what you're saying is actually, with all of the things that have happened, you can look at these changes that have been made now and look at how you can improve the business now. This is actually, there are opportunities here to relook at things.
Yes, in fact, I've made a couple of quick policy changes in terms of procedures in the firm already that have been very positive for the firm, but they lead us to bigger questions and to bigger and to open doors to more extensive review of how we do and handle things. It's just amazing what I have found in just the last 6 to 8 weeks in terms of things that could be improved, and I have initiated that. When people say, let's wait until this all calms down and let's get to it and we'll take care of it, I'm more of the philosophy of, no, now is the time to start rolling up our sleeves and start fixing some of this stuff if we can, but to do it methodically. I think that's the real key for me. Is I'm very big on methodical approaches. And if you have to sit there with paper and just, even if it's cocktail napkins or stickies or whatever it is, and you just spread them out on the table and you put it all out there, and you look at how it flows. Mo says, take that piece of paper and draw it out. That's really, I think, is key. And there has to be, and that's where the system thinking comes in, the design thinking in terms of how do we make this work? Now, Peter, will I get as many holiday cards this year? Probably not. I think that's a given. But I know that at the end of the day, the firm is ready to move on a different course than it ever was before. Yeah. And that's what we do with our clients as well when we're talking to them about opportunities. And I do believe now is a great opportunity for us to really take stock and to take a hard look at how we do things and see how we can improve them.
It is amazing. Almost like the second you start to really look at your processes, you immediately get ideas for things that could be done not just differently, but significantly better. And, I have one other point I wanted to say based on what Fred just said, and that is, we can all read what firms are doing, and the approach that they're taking is the same old approach they've always taken. Cut, cut, cut. And they're doing they're making sort of forgive me, could be a little provocative, but it's a really kind of a hack job. It's an overly simplistic, uninformed approach to just cut. And they're doing the kind of classic, let's just do more with less. And so that is why, if you go to our website, the very first thing that you see is how we define efficiency. It's maybe about doing more with less. That's one answer. But another answer is, let's do more with more, or let's do less with more, or let's do less with less. And so efficiency for a Lean Sigma practitioner, a design thinker, a systems thinker, is really around doing the hard work. What's the right thing to do? How do we do those things right? Ideally, the first time, every time. It sounds simple, and it is. What we do is not rocket science, but it's not easy. It's very methodical. And that is what's going to get you to the efficiency. Not do more with less. No, I mean, haven't we all learned that coping with these processes and trying to just do more of what you were doing with less than you had before results actually in inefficiency? It's not good for anybody's health. It actually, you see declining productivity. This is going counter to what all the organizations say they're about.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't help us deliver value. So do the right things, do those things the right way, the first time, every time. And I mean, we have these case studies, and I'm hoping, Mo, you'll share some of what you've been doing too, to really give some inspiration and give some ideas, because what we find too with our clients is they all want to know, okay, so this stuff, I get how it works in manufacturing. It makes sense there, but does it work? Does it work in legal? And how could it work here? They all want to know those same questions. So the more we can share how different organizations are approaching this, the more ideas we can put out there. Hopefully we'll inspire people to stop this madness with do more with less.
Stop the madness.
Catherine is saying, spend your way out of it.
Don't throw money at the problem. Choke it off.
Yeah. So I wanted to give your listeners an example of this from an end-to-end perspective.
Yeah.
There's a couple of slides. I think Fred referenced some slides, and Catherine's got some slides. We will share those slides. Hopefully you'll be seeing them along the way.
Yeah.
So the example that I want to talk you through is it's how does an organization optimize its processes to drive real value. And the case study was for a large organization, a real estate organization that was selling contaminated land. So land that had a previous use, it had infrastructure on there, and that infrastructure was hazardous, and it was important to get it down appropriately and make sure that the land is sold on in the right terms and with the right warranties and the right indemnities. And I was engaged by the legal function because there's a process that happens where there's an external, there's a commercial team internally, there's an external surveyor, there's an external outside counsel, internal legal team, and the business, who are the key players in the process. And each one of them set the transaction up, outsource the transaction, process the transaction, review the transaction, and then complete the transaction. And I was engaged to try and unlock the issues that kind of became apparent because the legal department were failing their KPIs. So they had a 5-day turnaround of reviewing the documents and sending them off. Because there were so many issues with the documents, capital receipts weren't going through, so the organization wasn't processing millions of pounds worth of property sales. Also, there was a lot of risk because documents weren't being completed properly, and therefore, if not done properly and not caught by the legal department, risk was exposed and these indemnities wouldn't be valid. So working with the GC, I spent some time trying to map out the key steps in the process and the key players in the process. So once we got ourselves into a place where we knew who the key players were, it'll be slide 2 in the example that I'll show you. The first piece is always to try and understand the current state. So get everybody in a room and actually say, how does this work today? And draw out a process map so it goes from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. I give you this, you give me that. This is how I move it. This is what I need that for to kind of make it happen. And then actually pull out the data and actually try and understand what really happens. So everybody
imagine. Shocked
Yeah, everybody imagines that I do the thing perfectly.
Oh my!
Yeah.
But actually, what they really do and what actually happens is in the data. So get in the data and kind of analyze the processes that have been mapped. Look at the query logs that the legal department was raising. Work out where the poor instructions were going out to the externals. That data gives you a real rich source of, look, this is broken, isn't it, guys? Then you're moving into get the whole team in a room and actually start getting them to identify what's an ineffective handover and what does it mean to them. So when I'm next in the chain and you give me a poor document, my time has started. I start drafting the document, but I haven't got all the instructions. Somebody else in the chain wants that document, so I send a document on without actually having all the content in there. So actually getting everybody to appreciate their failures and the impact on the next person in the chain is the kind of the next space. Once you know the voice of the customer, you then kind of share the full data set, the new process map, and you kind of come up with the desired state. So this is how we're going to work going forward. Once you've got the desired state, which is step 6 on the visual that you're going to see, it's then about getting the issues up and out in a visual management hub. So actually taking the data, taking the issues, taking the problems that the legal department are having or other people in the chain having, and having a visual hub where everybody crowds around and you actually have a conversation about this is broken and let's fix it now and in real time, as opposed to sending an email and delaying things. So kind of the example that I was talking through was identify what the problem is, get all the players in a room, identify all the key processes, get the data for that, draw and map that data process, put some real visuals around it, put the leadership behind it, hold people accountable. And actually the end result was, the millions of pounds of capital receipts actually started to come in very quickly. SLA conformance, the first time around was about 50%, it got to 95%. The voice of the customer was understood by everybody, so actually people understood people in the chain's pain, and actually then were kind of much more receptive to kind of challenging the queries that came in. The agony and the issues between the two teams were resolved, and people were happier to work with each other. And then I think the biggest thing was that you've got a more robust performance measurement and management product. So everybody knows what they should be doing, when they should be doing it, right first time, right every time. And I think, process mapping and DMAIC processes can go into a lot of detail, but actually you can do it in a fairly simple process that I've just explained. That's on the slide that I'm going to share with you that can really help. And my kind of closing message is operational excellence is here to stay. We should always be looking at finding a better way of doing what we do today. It's not, it's more relevant today than it ever was. But tools like systems thinking, tools like process management help you understand the thing from an end-to-end perspective, help you engage the right people in the space, and then you get a cohesive result that kind of gives you something that you can be really proud of and actually delivers commercial value. So that was my example, and you'll see a slide with that on. Yeah.
There's a lot of really great stuff in there. I mean, for me, it strikes me as going through that process is a tremendous opportunity to have a look at yourself and how you're running first, and make your business run more efficiently. And who doesn't want to run their own business more efficiently? But it also strikes me as a great chance for you to engage with clients, and that whole engagement of client and the locking in of the client. And if your processes are much more harmonized and together, then so much the better. And I think, as an individual, speaking as the individual, the person has to go home and sleep well at the end of every night. I want to know that I'm doing a good job, and I also want to know that there's no confusion, the process is clear, and I don't go to bed with things on my mind that I'm going to have to work through the following morning. I mean, it must happen to everybody. So I really, I like the idea, and I hope people will take it seriously, the investment, the opportunity to invest in a process like that. It must pay off in dividends in multiple ways, not just bottom line, but happier people doing the job too, I hope.
Yeah.
Well said, Neil?
It's all about the people, yeah.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I get asked quite a lot in the speaking circuit in the UK, actually, how do I learn these tools? What do I do with these tools? And I think one of the things that, I've done a master's in this, a 3-year course. Not everybody's got the time or inclination or interest in this area. Some people find it really dry. I absolutely love it. But Catherine, Fred, and I are working on with the faculty on something that I think people might be interested in. I'm going to hand over to Catherine, who can talk through this, if that's okay with you guys.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mo. We're really excited because what we have been asked for from kind of our community is to come up with some different ways to teach people how to do these things. And having studied curriculum design and, for many years now delivering not just process improvement and project management programs, but marketing and business development training programs, we all know this. Adults learn best when they're involved in experiential learning. So we really thought, okay, how do since we can't get people in a room, with sticky notes to teach them how to do process mapping, what could we create? So over the past month or so, we've been putting together a certificate program that is really designed around immersive learning on an online platform. So at the moment, we have a level 1 certificate and a level 2 certificate. Sure, level 3 and 4, levels 3 and 4 can't be far behind. But it essentially what we're doing is we're putting people into a cohort that is of limited size, and then dividing that cohort into teams of 4 or 5 participants. And the entire cohort will go through a series of courses that will be live lectures. There'll be 3 in each of the levels, and then they'll have an opportunity to work with an esteemed faculty member. So Mo is going to be working with the cohorts on 2 different case studies, one in level 1, which is really written from the law firm perspective, all around how do you decide where to get started? How do you structure for success? What kind of a first project should you be involved in? And so kind of going back to our earlier conversation, we'll introduce tools like the P+ scorecard. How do you walk through that? And then what do you do? What's your recommendation? And the teams will all have a chance to make their presentation. What are their recommendations based on the case study? And we intend to have celebrity judges join for some of that. And then the second case study will be around one that Mo's devised from the law department perspective. And as you might imagine, those 2 case studies represent 2 sides of the same coin. So those who want to get a level 2 certificate will go through level 1, go through the law firm case study, and that will be invaluable as they work on the level 2 case study with Mo. So we're really excited about it. We, we're a little competitive. We like to be first with some of these things. We don't see anybody else doing something quite like this. And I appreciate that I'm completely biased, but we have an amazing faculty that is representative of the way that we do our work, cross-functional, diverse team of people, including a Six Sigma black belt. We've got members of fellows from the College of Law Practice Management, corporate counsel, law firm executives. So people will really have an opportunity to learn from a wide variety of faculty, and we're looking forward to getting to work with everybody in this manner. So that's our big announcement.
That sounds great.
I tried to get Catherine.
Where do I sign up?
Now how much would you pay for this amazing offer? But wait, there's more. Please.
I tried to get Catherine over to the UK to run this. COVID came in the way.
Yeah.
But technology came to solve it. So in the end, you guys have helped us out. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Oh, well, and I like the idea as well that, you know, a lot of the courses that I see as well, you know, they're online courses and things, and they're simply, you know, video lectures and all that kind of thing. It's that this has a distinction of, you know, people are getting access to you all and things like that, and proper instructor-led courses and things like that, which I think is a real difference.
Yeah,
but I'm biased about the case studies, but the case studies actually help you really understand the learning. And what I find, having done this in the past, people really get competitive on the case study. So you've learned something. It might not have all gone in. When you pick up a case study and you see some of the facts that kind of point you to some of the learning, you're going to go back and read that, and it's going to become kind of immersive learning, and it's going to become a thing for you. So I think having the ability to practice what you've just learned through a case study and then present it, and then possibly go to the Oscars where Catherine hands out these trophies with celebrity guests. Let's just be clear, it's not George Clooney.
It's not?
You've decided not to be involved now.
What?
Might be
I'm out.
Yeah. In the legal space.
I certainly hope that you'll let us know afterwards. I'm sure we want to keep the suspense for others, but I want to know after who that is.
Maybe we can do the red carpet and the interviews on the red carpet. That'd be great.
Well, I completely want to have red carpet. It should be a black tie formal affair, because you know we awards are nice, recognition is nice, and a lot of people are wondering, you know, how do you get recognized for doing this if you haven't got kind of a platform to work on yet inside your own organization? So, you know, we know these case studies and the outcomes from them, and the chance to practice is, and maybe win an award for these, is going to be huge for real confidence boosters and giving people that feeling that, you know, we've all got a lot to offer inside of our organizations, and these frameworks and tools and our support and an award supporting them. We think that will bode well for those change agents who are really trying to make a difference here with this.
Yeah. Well, I certainly know when I looked across the website, I was very impressed with the mixture of people. I mean, we've obviously got, you know, in-house lawyers, some people have been in private practice before. You've gone for Fred on the operational side. So it's a very good mix of people on there. And I really like the sort of spread of expertise, which leads me then to ask you, how do people find what you're able to offer? How do they find you? Where should they go?
Yeah, so it's really simple to remember. It does not, I will admit this, it doesn't just flow right off the tongue unless you're used to it, but it is legalleansigma.com. So we put legal in front of Lean Sigma because the way that we do this really is different inside legal. I mean, there are reasons we have registered trademarks in this. It's not as simple as just, oh, we'll take things from other industries and apply them. What we find is most people do not have the time, the bandwidth, or the knowledge to be able to do those things. So we have bridged, and it really, most of it flows from lean thinking and Six Sigma thinking. So we took Lean Sigma and we put legal right in front of that, where it belongs, the focus on legal, because we're not manufacturing cars. We are manufacturing work product, but it's not just what we do for the client, but the interactions that they have with us, the way in which we do and deliver our work. That's the differentiator. So legalleansigma.com.
Brilliant.
Right.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, that's been really, really useful for me, and hopefully most of the listeners will have learned something. I really love the idea of the case studies. I don't think there's much more of a powerful example than that. So it was great to have those, and as you say, we'll have all the slides up. So hopefully people can get in touch.
Thanks for having us on.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's been great, and hopefully, we might get another chance to talk in the future as well. If we can, once all the courses are up and running and things, we'll have you back in, and we can maybe the world will have changed again when we when we talk.
It's changing as we speak.
That's right.
Is.
In fact, I'm going to go back and make even more changes.
Great.
Great.
Thank you, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all, and we'll catch you all again later.